Welcome to Daily Life Connection as we continue to explore who God is, His words, His ways, His works, and how that impacts our daily lives. I remember one of my mom's favorite songs was God is a shelter in a weary land. I think it went something like that. God is our shelter. We hear that in the Psalms often. David will talk about God is my shelter or my place of refuge. Well, what does that mean? What difference does that make about who God is? You know, I love to watch videos on YouTube of people hiking the Appalachian Trail. I find that fascinating for some reason. And over and over again, as they're recording their trek, that 2,000-mile trek from Georgia to Maine, I hear them saying things like, there's a storm moving in, we need to make it to the next shelter before the storm breaks. Or they're in a storm and it's pouring rain and wind, or maybe even snow up in the mountains in the early spring. And they make it to a shelter, and there's such relief in their voices. We're here to the shelter. There's a place to be warm and dry, and a place where the environment, the elements, cannot affect us like they would if there was no shelter. Does that make sense? You see, if I'm out in the rain and the cold, the sleet and the hail, I'm experiencing the full effect, the full negative effect of what's going on around me. But if I can reach the shelter, then all of a sudden, I'm not being rained on. The sleet is not sliding, running down my neck. I'm protected from the environment around me. I think that's what David meant when he said, God is my shelter. There are things in our lives that come against us. There are difficulties. There are storms of life, aren't they? The storm breaks, and we're experiencing the full brunt of it, the full force of it. And we need a place of shelter. That's our God. In those times when it seems like life is pelting us, we have a shelter. When we get into that presence of God, I know you've experienced it, and so have I so many times. I've become anxious, and anxiety wells up within me, or anger or disturbance because of what's going on around me, and I'm feeling the full sting of the environment that I'm in, or the situation that's there. I'm feeling the full impact of it. Then I go to God. I get into the presence of God. I read His Word. I sing a worship song. I listen to worship music. I meditate on a phrase of God. I've got this has nothing to do with anything. It's a rabbit trail. Okay. Lately in the night, I've been waking up with that phrase from Ephesians chapter 1, when it talks about God has blessed us with every blessing in Christ, just as He chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world. Just as He chose us. Been meditating on that. Don't have a lot of insight on it yet. So if you have some, would you put it in the comments today? I'd love to hear your thoughts on just as He chose us. That's a shelter for me sometimes when I am having an issue at night, thinking about all the things that need to happen and change. I meditate on that, or Psalm 23 or something, and all of a sudden I'm sheltered. I'm sheltered from the sting of the environmental storms that are going on in my life. Because we all have them, don't we? We all have those storms that threaten to overwhelm us, to chill us to the bone, to sting and hurt. I rode through a hailstorm on my motorcycle here a month or so ago. It hurt. It stung, those hailstones hitting me. But you know what? I had a helmet on, and that sheltered me. It sheltered. My head was not feeling the sting or the rain or the cold wind at all. Some of my body was, because it wasn't sheltered with just regular motorcycle gear. But that place of shelter, I was warm and dry in there. That's our God. That's our God. A place of shelter. Whenever we're experiencing those storms of life, get in the shelter. Pull on the helmet of salvation. Pull on that sheltered place in God. Get in His presence, meditate on Him, love Him, worship Him, and you will find, I know you will find, a shelter from the impact of the environment around you. Well, I'm going to stop talking and encourage you to just do that. Take some time right now. Sing a song, listen to a music, read a psalm, meditate on the goodness of God, and you will find you are sheltered in a time of storm. God bless. We'll talk again tomorrow.